Hey, welcome to a new episode of a Photographic Moment, and we're doing something a little bit different. I think this is my 9th episode, and I'm in the studio, what I call the studio home office. This is where I spend a lot of time behind the computer at digital photography. With digital, when it replaced film, a lot of people thought it was going to be more convenient. In some ways it is, but it definitely doesn't save time. It's just a trade-off. Instead of spending a lot of time in a darkroom or going through prints, spending a lot of time behind the computer. But that's okay. In the photography business, this is actually where the money is made. I spend a lot of time in Photoshop, Aperture, Photomatics, different Nick plugins, not to mention all the websites, the e-marketing, and QuickBooks and all that. You have to kind of be a jack of all trades, and definitely the computer systems help out. With digital photography, it's an absolute necessity, obviously. I work on a Mac Pro desktop unit and a MacBook Pro for my laptop. I also have a PC networked in. My favorite piece of a computer gear is this new Apple LED screen. It's absolutely superb when it comes to maintaining a good, accurate color profile, which is absolutely essential for good, effective digital image editing. What I'm working on now is a couple things. I'm getting ready for a workshop that I'm doing on November 21st at Cox Arboretum. It's a full-day workshop, and it's on digital workflow for nature photography. I've got 18 people registered for 20 slots, and there's 2 spots still open. So if you're interested, you're in the Dayton area and want to attend a very informative, fun workshop, learn a lot about digital workflow, and I'll go at that time into more in-depth discussion and demonstration of one of the techniques I'm going to show here soon. Also getting ready for a big event I'm doing on Friday evening, December 11th, here in a community clubhouse. I'm doing a private art showing called Margins of the Day, where I'm going to be highlighting 20 large format prints, work that I've done with landscapes in the early morning and late afternoon, and a lot of different locations, hence why the name Margins of the Day. One of the prints that I'm going to be showing right here, this one, and that is a Great Smoky Mountain National Park in autumn. And this is a good example of what I'm able to do on the computer. I don't do my own printmaking. It's too time-consuming, too expensive. It's much better to outsource the printing and just concentrate on what you can do, or what I can do as best I can on the computer, and preparing that digital image file. One of the techniques I'm going to show right now is called targeted adjustments, and I'm going to edit for just a sky and a landscape and show you how that can be done without damaging any of the foreground elements in the image. So come with me, and we're going to get right into Aperture, and we'll get started. Today I'm going to do a targeted adjustment layer, and what I want to do is be able to provide more color, tonal range, more punch or impact within a sky, and I think that's where targeted adjustment layers really comes in handy. I am right now, you can see this is Aperture, which I do about 90% of my image editing and management in. I could spend a long time explaining all the things I do with Aperture, but for purposes of this video, I'm just going to do this targeted adjustment layer in Photoshop. But I'm going to take this image, this is in Gettysburg at sunset. I'm going to export it out to the desktop, and I'm going to export it out as a 8-bit TIFF, and I'm going to reduce down Aperture, and this is my images that I have on my files rotate as a wallpaper on my screen, so that's what you're seeing there. This is the image exported out. Open up CS4. Now what I want to do is be able to make a nice adjustment to that sky without affecting the foreground elements. So I'm going to go to the magic wand tool over here in the toolbox. I'm going to select the sky, and now what I need to do is get all that sky within that selection. So I'm going to hold down the Shift button, and while I've got that held down, I'm going to use the magic wand tool and click on all these outside areas that weren't included the first time I tried to select. This brings them into the total selection for the adjustment that I'm going to make. And it doesn't take too long. It always depends on the sky. Just about got it. Over here, here, down here. It's kind of tricky when you're working with trees like this because the lines get pretty jagged. But this, I find it does pretty well, even in those kind of situations. So I've got that selected. I'm going to do an adjustment layer. Go to the top menu, hit Layer, go to New Adjustment Layer, and the tool I'm going to use is Curves. And here we have the adjustment layer selected, and in the curves box I'm going to do kind of a S-curve to start out with. I'm going to bring up the light end, and where the impact is going to happen is when I bring down the dark end, and this is why a lot of photographers prefer to use like a basic S on the curves. And there it goes. So it brought out more of the color, a little bit more contrast, a little bit more impact. That's good. Now if I wanted to do another adjustment layer while I've got that sky selected, I could go up to Layer again, do a new adjustment layer for something such as saturation, and now I got a new adjustment layer with just a sky for saturation, and kind of put a little more, even more impact in there. So and then I want to check the edges and go back to the original adjustment layer that I did with curves. Magnify some of these edges a little bit where we did the selection. You see where it gets a little bit jagged because Photoshop, in doing that selection with the magic wand tool, kind of estimates, and it leaves these little noisy areas along the edges. So what I can do is go back here next to that where that curves adjustment window is, hit mask, and start to feather the lines, which will extend without making it obvious the boundaries of that layer, and takes out a lot of that noise, which is nice. Magnifying this much too, and this shot was done with a Canon 1D Mark II, which is like an a little bit over 8 megapixel sensor and this is at a high ISO rating, so that's why you see a lot of digital noise. What I can do, I don't have time right now, but what I can do is take this back into Aperture and apply a plugin that's called Noise Ninja, and I can adjust just enough where it takes out a lot of that noise in the sky without damaging any of the detail in the foreground elements. So that's just another tool to make it enhance it even more. But for now, it looks pretty good. So that is a targeted adjustment done in Photoshop, and I'm going to flatten it back out, and then I'll bring this back into Aperture, and from there I can manage it for this Margins of the Day project that I'm working on. That will be prints and a book that goes along with it.